Hey everybody, so who wants to hear another funny, silly horror story? I was actually even debating in my head about whether or not this is a horror story, but it's a pretty good story nonetheless. So, I don't consider myself to be a religious person. Quite frankly, I consider myself to be, agnostic. You have your faith, and that's fine. I will question it or anything like that, but I'm not going to be, an ass or a dick about it unless you're an ass or a dick about it. And well, so I learned something a while ago from my current job. We have to do a lot of job training as part of, because of the particular company that we work for and such things like that, and one of these tests or lectures that we had to sit through was about different types of harassment, sexual harassment, verbal harassment, physical harassment, blah, blah, blah. And I learned something very interesting. And so a long time ago, like 10 plus years ago, I used to work at a little Mexican restaurant that's no longer here, sadly. It was called El Gringo. It was like my first official job when I was still in high school. And it was kind of my first, real experience in actually working in a restaurant or really working in the food industry. And there was this one cook who I was friendly with and who seemed like a nice guy. But he was a bit of a religious nut. He was one of those guys who loves to tell his story about how he was saved and he felt the touch of God. But if you didn't talk to him about religion, he was, he was a really cool dude. He was heavily into music, and loved, different types of music. And, and it was a lot of fun to talk to him about it until, not that I would ever want to turn the subject to religion, he just often would, because that was just how he was. I don't remember if I did come out to him. I know I didn't come out to a lot of people. So for those who don't know, and for those who don't pay attention, I'm bisexual. And have been bisexual probably since I was probably a senior in high school. And, I don't know if he caught wind of this, or if I told him, or if he, just heard through one of the various employers who I, or fellow employees, who I, would talk to with about my minute experiences, which weren't much or anything like that. And because he started in on this whole thing about how he wanted me to go to his church. Because he didn't go to the stereotypical church. His church was special. I forget, or even don't really even know what this type of a church is called, where it's a very mixed type of a church. My mom would probably know. And the funny thing is that my family, I think my dad is kind of religious. My mom, she's an Episcopal. Her and my stepfather. My brother is a hardcore atheist. My sister, she's probably an agnostic, like me, where it's like, it's okay if you have that belief, that is perfectly fine, just don't be a dick. And I think that's a perfectly good philosophy to have. And this guy would get on me a lot about how you need to go to my church, you need to go to my church, you need to go to my church, and just constantly harassing me about it. Even going so far as to, and I don't remember if this happened, but anyway, finally he made me an ultimatum. Gotta love these ultimatums, where he told me, if you go to church with me just once, I promise I'll never bring it up again. So I went. Oh boy. Let's talk about this, because I've been to churches before, not for Sunday service or anything like that, and I think this was the Sunday service that I went in for. I had been to churches for weddings, funerals, and even for a few graduation ceremonies, because a few of my step-siblings went to church schools. That's a whole different thing to begin with. But, and so we went, and this was the most bizarre experience I'd ever had. There was a point where I expected somebody to bring out a snake, and people to start handing the snake around and finding out whether or not the snake was going to bite you or not. But thankfully this wasn't that sort of a thing. But it was just the weirdest, dumbest shit I've ever seen in my life. Where there's this woman in this church. And I apologize if my acid reflux starts acting up again. It's not something I can control. There was this woman who's standing in the corner, looks like she's like wearing a white nightgown. And she has these two different colored flags. I think like one was blue and the other was white. And she was just standing in this corner just doing this weird sort of dancing sway thing with her flags. Like, and it almost, like when I looked at her face, it looked like she was in a trance. Almost. That was what was so weird about it. And I mean, really, you know, there were only a couple of weird moments. There was that, and that went on for quite a while. I think there was a point where she did have to take a break, and actually did sit down. I think the whole sermon, the whole thing, probably went on for an hour. It felt like it went on for longer. You know, and there's this point where the preacher is talking to the crowd, and there are just so many moments where he's just babbling, and I don't even remember a lot of even what he talked about. More than likely, he really didn't talk about much. And at one point, he tells everybody in the room to turn to your neighbor and tell them, I love you. And the guy I'm with, you know, and this is so fucking weird. You know, they all do the thing, you know, they all do the thing where they turn, you know, where they turn to the person sitting next to them and tell them, brother, I love you. You know, or I'm sure if it was, you know, a woman, they would say, sister, I love you. Yeah, and that's fine, but to me, God, it just came off as weird. I mean, it really did. You know, and maybe this is, you know, maybe this is, you know, the cynical fag in me that's coming out. But yeah, that was weird and kind of uncomfortable. That was weird. And then it gets weirder when the preacher starts really getting into his sermon. You know, the stereotypical, I told my brother, I told my sister. And the preacher was black, too. So, naturally, yeah. I told my brother, I told my sister. You know, he's getting into it. And the band is picking up and playing music. They also had a band. Of course, most churches have bands or they have choirs. And one of the band members who isn't playing at this time, he was sitting like front row. And he suddenly starts getting up, you know, and he's doing, you know, that weird church dance thing that you see people do when they're really getting into it. You know, where he's doing that thing where he's doing this, and he just starts spazzing. Like, he just starts doing this uncontrollably, faster and faster, and then he just falls onto the floor. And somebody who's sitting next to him has to get down and make sure that he's okay. And I turned to my quote-unquote friend, you know, the guy that encouraged me, made me do this so he would shut up about it. You know, I turn to him and go, is he okay? And he just says, no, he's fine. He's just feeling the spirit. In the back of my head, I'm thinking, he's having a seizure. He's not feeling the spirit. God. Yeah, and that shit is just so weird, and it just looks so stupid. I mean, it really does. Oh, I'm feeling the spirit. I'm feeling the spirit. There are plenty of other ways to feel inspired or feel the quote-unquote spirit. You know, you can get up, you can join in the sermon, you can stand up and clap. You know, you can be a normal fucking person, not be a fucking lunatic. Anyway, I apologize. I don't like being judgmental, but this shit just comes off as fake to me. It just comes off as just corny, and you just look like a jackass, you know, when you do that shit. And well, he had hoped that I would go again, but I said no. That was weird. And even though he said, like, oh well, if you go to church with me once, I promise I'll never bring it up again. Bullshit. I think for quite a while he continued to bring it up about you really need to go to church. You need to go to my church. And what really started to irritate me was how he started adding in the whole, I'm gonna save you. I feel personally insulted by that. See, because obviously there was a part of my personality, and I'm guessing it's because of the whole bisexual thing, if he was even aware of it, that he had an issue with, and that he wanted to change or save me from which. And the reason I bring this up as part of the whole training thing was that I found out that as part of the harassment training, I could have filed a harassment claim against that company for religious harassment. I could have. I didn't know about that then. I do now. And I find that rather kind of funny. How I could have, gone to the owner, who I was pretty good friends with, and told her, yeah, hey, Chad keeps on harassing me a lot about going to church with him and about how he's gonna save me and all this. And I did it once, got really, really uncomfortable about it, and he still continues to bring it up. And I've told him no on several occasions, and he continues to harass me about it. If he doesn't stop, I'm going to file a claim because this shit is ridiculous. This is kind of funny to think about. And I want to say, I find that whole I'm gonna save you shit, well, of course, this, usually only comes from the fundamentalists or from the really hardcore religious people. I mean, fundamentalists, I think, most typical fundamentalists, they would rather want to kill you, than save you or anything like that. But if you're the type of wanting to save people, you should really be more focused on the people that actually, need saving. Like drug addicts, alcoholics, the homeless. And not, and don't use the whole I'm gonna save you. Because this is an aspect about religion that can just be really insulting and irritating to a lot of people, and quite understandably why somebody like my brother gets so up in arms about religion that he just hates it and just finds it incredibly stupid and useless. As do a lot of people. I can see how on one hand it's useless. It was originally used as a teaching tool, and now it's not really needed at all. It's just kind of it does kind of feel like a blatant lie, pretty much. But if you were to at least just use those teachings and then try to apply those to a real world situation, actually striving to better not only yourself but everybody around you by just spreading good and being good. Of course, that, I don't know, this is a whole different debate that we can get into. I was just trying to tell a funny story, and now I'm getting philosophical. Not that I mind, it's just, it can obviously come off as pretty weird, and a lot of the time I'm trying to figure out what it is I'm trying to say, or even get to a point. But just don't be a dick, and especially don't be a religious high and mighty dick. Don't, because nobody likes that. Nobody does. Just try not to be a prick. Alright, everybody. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you next time.